Hi, this is Tanya Becker, and I'm your host for today's episode of PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any of our podcast episodes, subscribe to PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. I sat down with Jackson Burnett, the president of Vapor Elementalware. As an organization, Vapor Elementalware bundles some of my highest personal and professional priorities: U.S. manufacturing, science, comfortable and sharp-looking activewear, health and wellness, and sustainability. We're going to talk about the really interesting science behind Vapor Elementalware's sun protective clothing and their manufacturing approaches that I believe are really important. We're also going to discuss some sunscreen information that I think will be quite interesting to all the anglers out there who want to catch more fish. Thanks so much for being here today, Jackson.
Tanya, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Can you start by giving our listeners an overview of Vapor Elementalware's story, including the mission of the company?
Absolutely. The mission has adjusted over the years. Started the business in 2004. And really started as a performance apparel company focused on digital printing and sublimation. And there was really no brand that was focused on that segment of the market that was a performance apparel brand. So we kind of brought performance apparel to sublimation. And that's where we sat and focused for several years. And then we realized that not only were we selling into the awards and custom gift world, but we also started selling into the outdoor retail markets. And that led us to, as we got into the outdoor markets, which is a passion of mine, we realized, well, fishermen and boaters started buying our garments, and we needed UPF fabric. So I think about 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago now, time flies, especially with a pandemic thrown in there, we developed a fabric that really changed the face of our company. It is a 50 plus UPF fabric, cooling, wicking, all that kind of technology, and that got us into doing online retailing, and what is eventually what we started 2 years ago, the voyage of creating a brand. And we've been known as Vapor Apparel for 18 years, going on 18 years. And about a year ago, we started the brand evolving in the brand mission to go direct to consumer and that just all those markets. 2 years ago and a year ago, we rebranded to Vapor Elementalware, and that is basically saying that we're not just sun shirts. We're now developing products and outdoor gear for all seasons, and really excited about the direction we're taking this thing.
Interesting. So was from the founding of the company, were you all always really passionate about sustainability and that sort of thing, or is that kind of a passion that developed as you carried on?
Oh no, well, I actually got my I had an extra football season when I went to Clemson University, and I got my area of concentration in environmental sciences. So that was a nice fall that I had to learn about eco and stuff like that. But my background, I was in the polyester yarn business for a number of years, and actually in the late 90s, before the yarn that we predominantly use, Reprieve, was branded, we were selling recycled yarn, and I was on in the garment district in the streets of New York peddling recycled yarn. Nobody wanted it back then. Nobody knew what to do with it. They asked why it was more expensive. So started there, and once I started the company, we've been playing around with Reprieve probably since for about 14, 15 years, and made some good products, some not so good products, but where we've really landed in the last few years, we've got an exceptional product that's just, we're very proud of where it's come.
Cool. I think there's a lot of confusion out there as to what sun protective clothing actually is. Doesn't all clothing provide protection from the sun?
Well, I thought that. And so one of the I figured you put on a shirt, you don't get sunburn, of course, growing up in the '80s, we didn't worry about sunburn.
No,
But
baby oil and iodine, man, that was my youth.
that's right. That's right. So, but going to the shows, especially ICAST, one of the biggest fishing shows out there, and talking to some of the pros, they would show that, look, if I wear an inferior shirt, I'm getting you know sunburn and skin freckles and even melanoma through shirts. And so I think our product we had prior to developing what we call our EcoSol and solar, it only tested out to about 20 UPF. And once we went and spent some time developing this, and we realized that there's a big difference. It really does make a difference. The UPF is something that consumers need to pay attention to.
That's great. Yeah, I think the first time I saw, sun protective clothing in outdoor stores, I was confused. I had no idea what it was, whether it was some kind of chemical that was on the clothing, and I think a lot of consumers are still in that boat. So maybe you could share how with the listeners, how sun protective fabric is made.
Yes, and there's a lot of confusion in the market. There's a lot of brands touting sun protection. There's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
We manufacture ours. Where we started was the construction of the fabric, because we felt that by constructing a higher loft fabric, but still keeping with the performance, the cooling, all the technical benefits that our consumers and our customers loved, we had to keep this as a high performance garment that when you're in 95 degree heat, it's still gonna perform the way it needs to. So we focus on how we make this fabric thicker, but still performance. And then we realized that also the color of the garment matters. So you get into whites and blacks, well, they grade out higher because how the light refracts off the colors. Think about a football player or baseball player. They put black under their eyes, and it helps cut down glare. So the same thing happens in fabrics. So white and black test out better. The mid shades don't. So we had to go out and find a zinc technology that we permanently embedded into the fabric that got us to that 50 plus across all of our products.
Got it. That makes tons of sense. So it's actually, the zinc is actually embedded in the yarn, and then obviously the yarn makes fabric.
There are technologies that utilize yarn. We do not. Our technology, we embed that in the fabric when we make the fabric. Yeah. And the technology coming out of the yarn guys is really good. It's really expensive. And so we've got to find, our challenge was to find a technology that worked not only to deliver the highest the highest performance, but also was marketable from a cost standpoint.
That makes complete sense. Got it. So does it work? Does the clothing work if it gets wet?
It does. Ours does. We test our fabrics, wet, dry, up to 50 launderings. And so yes, absolutely ours does. I have to be careful because I can't speak for all brands and all fabric constructions, but we make sure when we design our fabrics that we go through the testing to make sure we're covering everybody, because our target market, boaters and fishing and outdoor activities, you get wet. And if you get wet, got to have sun protection. And personally, when I'm out with my family on the boat, I put on a shirt and jump in the water, out of the water. Just I don't take it off, and it really makes the application of sunscreen or the lack thereof a much less laborious process.
Good. Speaking of laundering, I mean, do you have to wash dry this clothing in any special way? At least the Vapor Elementalware clothing.
No, we don't. We recommend cold water and low temperature just because that's what you recommend. But I can tell you, I wash it hot and dry hot over and put in some stuff in the wash that my wife doesn't want me to, and it still it still performs. And what we've actually found over testing is that our fabrics increase in UPF rating. So our rating is actually 70 to 100 without washing and drying, and it increases over time. And I haven't been able to fully prove this out, but what I think is as the fabric gets wet and dries, it pulls in and tightens up over time. So the rating of our fabric actually increases over time, which is a great benefit because there are competitors that put topical finishes on to increase their UPF, and those will wash out.
Got it. Yeah, this the fabric contracting over time makes sense, and it makes me feel better about my jeans. When I feel like,
this normally takes a couple days for them to work out, right?
Exactly. Did I eat too much, or are the jeans just contracting? I don't know. Maybe it's a little both.
That's funny.
So so here's a bit that always confuses me a little. I mean, and I think it confuses a lot of people. I mean, what's the difference between SPF, the designation for sun protection that we see on sunscreen bottles, versus UPF, the designation that for sun protection on sun protective clothing?
Yeah, well, so SPF is specific to lotions. I'm not sure if it has any other designations, but I know it's lotions, and it's what we all knew growing up. It's SPF. UPF your sunscreen has an SPF rating. The rating for fabric is UPF, so that's just a different designation, different tests. So we get people asking us all the time, do you have SPF rated clothing? And rather than explain it to them, we just say, of course we do. So
it's just easier.
It's just easier. So yeah, it's just a designation between fabric, the UV protection from a fabric versus a lotion.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. It's probably some governing body that came up with these terms.
Exactly. Yep.
So do you still need to wear sunscreen if you're wearing Vapor Elementalware?
Of course, in the places we're not covered, so neck, face, if you're not wearing a gaiter, hands, my process with my family and myself is put on a long sleeve L-sole garment, hit my hands, my face, my neck, and my legs, and I'm good to go. So, but yes, but under the garment, there is no need to wear sunscreen.
Good. It does make lathering up a bit easier.
It does.
to say the least.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Vapor Elementalware, I know, is rooted in U.S. manufacturing and sustainability, those two kind of topics. Could you share a bit more about how the company fulfills these commitments?
Yes. Actually, my great grandfather started a mill doing high tenacity narrow fabrics in Greenville, South Carolina, back in the early 1900s, and so that company was in the family, and then my father got out of it and is actually a partner in Vapor Elementalware, and so it's always been a desire to employ U.S. Workers and build jobs, and so we actually, for a number of years, actually did our own sewing, and that is a tough road, and so we still do our own embellishing and fulfillment in South Carolina. We've got 2 facilities. We are partnered with some other sewers that do a heck of a better job managing a sewing facility than I ever did. So it's just it's important to bring these jobs back and have a strong manufacturing base in the U.S. in light of everything going on in the world right now. So it's important for us to do that. And then outside of that, we are focused in this hemisphere. So most of our production comes out of South America, and we are working with places in Central America. We're working with partners in Haiti, A lot of people might have a negative connotation to Haiti, but these are our neighbors, and building a stronger country there, and giving work to those guys, to bring a quality product at fair prices. It's all part of the same thing. A lot of people say, well, I only want made in USA, but they don't want to pay for it. Well, so,
right.
it's my argument is, well, the minimum wage just went up, so it's going to cost more. So, you can't have both. But yeah, just it's super important. I think in hemisphere is we've got to have strong partners and strong resources in our hemisphere, but certainly a focus on the U.S. Job market is super important as well.
That's right. And you kind of mentioned this, but you were sort of pandemic ready. I mean, shipping within the hemisphere is a heck of a lot easier right now than trans-Pacific shipping.
It is. We're running into our own. The last 2 to 3 months have been pretty difficult, so that it's a fight we fight every day. But it's just part of it. The world's gotten more difficult, and it just you just wake up every day and figure out what fight you want to fight.
That's right. You're also very in tune to sustainability, as we've already mentioned. How is that kind of philosophy carried out in terms of the materials that your fabrics are made out of and so forth?
Well, so when we started the company, we weren't working with any. Reprieve is the brand that we use. The company I used to work for, and that makes the recycled yarn. And with the supply chains where they are, we try to get Reprieve. Sometimes we'll use non-branded recycled water bottle yarn. But so Vapor as a whole, because of the wholesale market we're in, that market doesn't want to always pay, just like Made in USA. They don't always want to pay for the sustainable version. They like it, but market forces, they've got to pay for the non virgin yarn versus recycled yarn. So our goal with the new brand Vapor Elementalware is that we will, when possible, make that a sustainable garment, recycled. We actually have a tee called the 200-mile tee, and that's really cool. That is one that we sew in the U.S. So the yarn comes from the U.S. We knit it in the U.S. It comes from North Carolina. We knit it in North Carolina. We dye and finish it in South Carolina, and we sew it in South Carolina, and then we embellish it and ship it and fulfill it from South Carolina. So that's a pretty cool story. And that's why we call it the 200-mile tee. It's all sustainably sourced within the U.S. Those garments have 5 to 6 water bottles in them. It's a tri-blend fabric, but going back to Vapor Elementalware, I would say 80 to 90% of what we sell out of that brand is recycled, and that's the statement we're trying to make. And what we're finding is that as our brand is getting more recognition, we're having wholesale customers come to us and say, "Hey, we want sustainability too." And so we feel that if with the strides we're making, if we lead with the story and make it available to B2B customers, they're getting asked by their customers, their end customers, for that product. So it's a long road, but we're committed to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our folks, many of our PartsVu customers, our listeners to the podcast, they of course love spending time on the water, but many of them love to fish.
Yep.
And sustainability is very important to making sure that they can continue to fish. So regardless of what anybody's opinion is at a more abstract level, we've got to do these things so the fish populations stay healthy and we can continue to do what we all love.
It's all linked together.
That's right.
It's actually cool. Through our initiatives with Vapor Elementalware, we've linked up with No Shoes Reefs, and they are partnered with a company that we just started working with, the Reef Institute out of Florida, and they are revitalizing reefs. So it's almost kind of like a Noah's Ark. They're going and finding and again, I'm new working with them, so I'm not going to try to give you too much information because I'll get in trouble. But you go to reefinstitute.com, and it really they are taking live reefs, and reefs are living, breathing organisms. They take them, they put them in a lab, and they mate them, they grow more reefs, and then they'll take them and put them back out into the ocean. So it's really cool, and we just started working with them a couple months ago. So I'm still, there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of really smart people over there that I don't know if I'll ever learn as much as they know. So but it's really cool stuff.
Yes, that's very cool. I'm glad that you guys are doing that. There's a lot of reasons for anglers to wear sun protective clothing. I mean, but can you summarize some of the reasons boaters and anglers need to be especially, mindful of sun protection?
Well, I think the obvious thing, and this is not really what we like to point out because everybody knows it. If you don't wear sunscreen, the rays are getting stronger. You're going to get sunburn, and then you got long-term health effects and from melanoma and stuff. And that's not really our message. I think people know now to do that, but our message is, you love the outdoors, you love the water. This is why you're wearing our gear. So wear our gear and do what you do longer, and stay out and enjoy your passion.
That's right. So the issue that I kind of just mentioned earlier, the issue that always gets the attention of our listeners is just the ability to catch more fish.
Yep.
Both long-term and short-term. Short-term, I think many fish don't like sunscreen, even trace amounts on the bait. Is that what you found too in some of your research?
Well, again, I am not an expert and authority, and if you ever go fishing with me, you'll see that on fishing. And I fish, I don't catch. If I want to catch, I go with a guide who knows what he's doing. That being said, what we have found in research is that humans can't see UV, but fish can. So if you've got sunscreen on your hands and you've got it with the artificial lure and bait, when you put it in the water, then that comes off, and the fish can see that. So that is a negative. That probably is why I told you I put sunscreen in my hands. That's probably why I don't catch any fish.
That's the reason.
I've just figured it out. But so fish don't like the smell of sunscreen. It's just and despite the fact a lot of the chemicals, PABA for one, it's harmful to marine life. So again, it goes back to the coral reefs, and that those damaging sunscreens in Hawaii and the Keys, I believe they've started banning certain types of sunscreen. So we've actually working with a few sunscreen companies that are selling, I don't know what they call it, but reef-friendly I don't think it's just anti-PABA. I think there's other chemicals that they take out that are friendly to the reefs, which is friendly to marine life. So again, it's all one big cycle. And one thing that these guys at the Reef Institute preach is that the reefs are kind of like a rainforest, not kind of like, they are like. And when you got the reef population being decimated, you're killing all microorganisms, small fish to large fish. So it is something that is important to gain awareness, and the work these guys are doing is super important.
Good. The final little comment that I'll make related to sunscreen is this may be a minor issue to some people. I don't think it's a minor issue, but if you get the spray sunscreen on your boat, the upholstery of your boat, it is hard to get off. So don't spray sunscreen in your boat.
100%. And I'll defer to you as an expert on that, but and I'm sure you guys sell something that will get it off. But
yes,
I hope so.
Yeah. No, we do, but it's best not to get it on in the first place.
Yeah, boats. They're everybody's always got a project on a boat, and it's one less project you got to deal with.
That's right. So, could we close with some advice for what anglers should wear, especially when they're out there for hours on end?
Yes. So, our garments, again, I'm going to focus on our what we're leading with, and in the summer, it's our Eco Sole, and we've got men's, women's, gaiters, so to protect the neck and the face, sun hats, our boonie hats, bucket hats. I wear more of a trucker hat, but just covering your face. And I think everybody knows this, but long pants. If you really, there's you can cover every inch of your body if that's what you're trying to do, and it's light, airy fabrics. One thing that's very important that we have built in our garments, because when you cover yourself up, it can get very hot because typically you're out in hot locations. Our fabric has a cooling technology that when it gets wet, it cools to 70 degrees. So that helps you because you can get dehydrated as you're covering up and trying to protect yourself from the sun. So that's an important piece to it, and just common sense. I think most people listening to this podcast are out on the water a good bit and know what they need to do. So I think that's good stuff. And then as you get into, I think you got to remember as you get into fall and spring and even the winter months, the sun doesn't go away, and that's why our branding is focused for sun protection for every season. And my daughter came back from the beach yesterday or earlier this week, and it's February, and she came back sunburned. So it can happen in any season. So it's just super important to be aware of it, and that's why we make what we make.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for being here today, Jackson.
Well, Tanya, thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to run through all this. And this is a great conversation.
No, it was really great. And PartsVu is proud to carry a portion of the Vapor Elementalware catalog, and I've included a link so that folks can check that out. And that link, of course, is in the show notes. And I also encourage our listeners to check out Vapor Elementalware's full line on their website at vaporapparel.com. And I've linked to their site in the show notes as well. Finally, I'll encourage you to follow them on Instagram and Facebook, also linked. And of course, follow PartsVu on Instagram and Facebook if you're not already.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Are you in a dock war with your boating neighbor for the cleanest boat? Check out our marine soaps, polishes, waxes, and more at PartsVu.com. And for free shipping, use the coupon code PVTalksShine, a special perk for our podcast listeners. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for boating knowledge, to keep in touch with the PartsVu community, and for special sales and promotions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and check out the show notes for the coupon code just mentioned, more information about PartsVu and the products we offer, as well as our boating blog, the PartsVu Xchange. And a big thanks to Mind for performing the original music featured within this podcast.